Welcome back to Unpacking the Backpack, everybody. Well, if you're still here listening, thank you very much. Today I kind of want to talk about, how we can really lead effectively. And I go back to when I was a kid. Now, I grew up in pretty much the middle of nowhere, very rural area of New Jersey. Yes, there are rural areas of New Jersey. I went to a K-8 school of less than 200 kids. My high school, less than 400 students. And my parents owned a couple acres of property. So my brothers and I would always be outside, just getting into mischief, exploring. And one of my favorite and most practical tools that I had was the Swiss Army knife. And, I loved using the Swiss Army knife because, I was able to select the right tool for the right task. Whether it was using the saw to cut off some branches to make a fire, or to use the screwdriver to put some things together. And, when I think about leadership is a lot like a Swiss Army knife. And I think that if we want to be effective, we need to lead with a Swiss Army knife approach. So I'm going to use that to kind of set up what I'm going to discuss today, and I want you to think about how would you define great leadership? What are the characteristics of influential leaders? And don't worry, I'm going to come back to the Swiss Army knife. Each of these questions leads to various responses. I'm sure that each of you that are listening can develop a quick list of critical characteristics or behaviors that one must utilize to help move people to where they need to be to improve culture and performance. Sure, some might naturally rise to the top, but the fact of the matter is that one is not necessarily better than the other. Influential leaders tend to be effective because they understand each situation requires a different approach. Are you making the connection to the Swiss Army knife? When we think about leadership, I kind of like this synopsis from Kenda Cherry. She says, the situational theory of leadership suggests that no single leadership style is best. Instead, it depends on which type of leadership and strategies are best suited to the task. According to this theory, the most effective leaders are those that are able to adapt their style to the situation and look at cues such as the type of task, the nature of the group, and other factors that might contribute to getting the job done. Again, are you starting to visualize the connection to the Swiss Army knife? So let me summarize what I just read from Kenda Cherry. There is no one best way to lead. The landscape is changing at such a frenetic pace, and this requires a multifaceted approach, something that I went into great detail in my book, Digital Leadership. The key is understanding when to apply what is needed in different situations, and there isn't a better analogy, in my opinion, than the Swiss Army knife. As I said, I had one of these, when I was a kid. I loved the multifunctionality. I tended to use some tools more than others. Different problems or challenges required a different gadget. Knowing what tool to select and when to use it helped to achieve success. And it was always reassuring to know that this device could do many things. Leadership is a lot like a Swiss Army knife. First, leaders need to understand what strategies are the most critical in leading change, improving outcomes, and developing a thriving culture. Secondly, they need to know when and where to employ these strategies based on the situation. So as we think about, the analogy of a Swiss Army knife, I'm now going to think about the different tools. You could have a screwdriver, you could have pliers, you could have a saw, you could have a nail file. Think about all the many gadgets in a Swiss Army knife. So now what I'm going to do is kind of use this analogy to emphasize all of the many avenues that leaders have based on the situation to effectively lead change. So, communication. Communication is important. The right information at the right time, the right way is vital. You will not find an effective leader who is not an effective communicator. And sometimes we might need to communicate verbally. We might need to use technology. It might be nonverbal. It could be written. But the important thing to know is to use the right medium at the right time, the right way. So that's number one, communication. Another one, we'll just say number two, is consensus. Consensus is extremely important for large decisions. And consensus really embodies shared decision making to build collective efficacy. I remember when we changed the way we graded when I was a principal. Hardest thing I ever did. And the one thing, after we looked at the data and we saw that we were failing too many students, I made a decision, we need to tackle this problem now. And I put a committee together, not just of the ones that agreed with me, but people that were kind of in disagreement with me on occasion. And we came to consensus on three main things. We're going to implement retakes, redos. We're not going to give zeros anymore unless a student cheats. And we're going to implement a failure floor. And the consensus was that was going to be a 50. So when we think about large changes, come back to how we build that consensus. Another great tool, we'll say number three, is storytelling. Stories motivate and inspire. The brain is wired for storytelling. Think about, people have been telling stories forever. Think about ancient cave paintings, the invention of papyrus, paper. Humans are so attached and attracted to stories. And stories activate different parts of the brain. So as we think about leadership, there's a time to motivate and inspire. So you might need to go to that tool in your Swiss Army knife to either help move change forward or to get things back on track. Another great tool, number four, is modeling. We need to practice what is preached. And, I kind of group modeling, feedback, and support all together. So let's consider that one tool that could do many different things. First off, with modeling, don't ask others to do what you're not willing to do yourself. There is nothing more off-putting to the people we serve when they are just dictated to. So we have to roll up our sleeves as leaders. We have to stick our toe in the water, dip our toe in the water. We need to take that leap because we have to understand, to get people from where they are to where they want and should be, we need to be modeling those practices. Feedback, is probably the best way to grow and improve. Everybody says they want feedback, but are those people asking for it open to it? Feedback has to be timely, practical, specific. And feedback is not evaluative. Feedback is consider this, try this, think about that. And support. Support can come in many forms. It could be professional learning. It could be resources. It could be exhibiting empathy. It could be granting time. So let's now look at another tool, and we'll call this number 5, research and evidence. As leaders, we need to be able to justify change. And, as we justify changes to be implemented, validating strategies that are used to improve outcomes, there's nothing better than peer-reviewed research, what actually works, and evidence. When we put something into practice, here's how it's actually led to a tangible result. Research and evidence go hand in hand. And, when I work with teachers, they're always telling me, Eric, we know the why. So many keynoters, presenters, they talk about the why. We want to know, how can we do it? And what does it look like? And if you're looking to get easy access to peer-reviewed research, check out the AI tool Consensus. Tool number 6, vision. Vision is articulating where we are headed, how we will get there, and why. Without a clear vision, there is usually chaos. There is usually undermining. The energy vampires come out to play. Think about how you work as leaders to create a shared vision, because leadership is a team sport. People that we support have to be involved in the process. Number 7, reflection. What a fantastic tool. John Dewey said, we don't learn from experience. We learn when we reflect on experience. As you reflect as leaders, I want you to think about, why do you do things the way you do them? How might you do it better? And what tells you if you are successful? I encourage you to develop your own set of questions to not only help yourself reflect first and foremost, but then to tweak those questions, to use with the people you serve, to get them to reflect on their process, why they do things the way they do it, how they might do it better. Reflection could very well be the most powerful tool that we possess as leaders. And finally, let me see what number we're at. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. Delegation. Leadership is about building capacity by empowering others. As much as you might want to do things, or your fear of giving up control, the most effective leaders know when and where to delegate. Something that, I'm not going to lie, I struggled with as a principal. I got better, and I still struggle with it now as I have a team of consultants. But we have to know what responsibilities are going to help others reach their full potential. So the different tools in my Swiss Army knife: communication, consensus, storytelling, modeling, feedback, support, research and evidence, vision, reflection, delegation. Could you add more tools to your Swiss Army knife? Of course you can. And I kind of just picked a few. There are so many. But here's the thing, everybody. To be effective, great leaders understand that they must be flexible if success is the goal. While many of the elements that I discussed can happen simultaneously, different situations require a specific approach or strategy. Leading with a Swiss Army knife approach empowers leaders to identify the context or challenge and readily adapt to employ a personalized approach to solve a problem, move an innovative idea forward, or improve culture. In the words of Richie Norton, the challenge you have right now, it's not a wall, it's a door. It's meant to be opened. Get a handle on the situation and open it. End quote. Sometimes you need a different key to open the door. Hence, the Swiss Army knife approach. Well, I hope you all enjoyed this episode of Unpacking the Backpack. And if you want to dive in more to, effective leadership, I encourage you to check out my book, Digital Leadership, which is available on Amazon or through my publisher, Corwin. Everyone, Happy New Year, and keep making a difference.